The Kansas City Chiefs looking to bounce back, go on the road to the New England Patriots, who pulled off quasi stunner on Thursday Night Football a week ago against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Another early kickoff here in Foxborough. This one now sitting at 8.5 for the Chiefs as road favorites, total of 37. Adam, we saw 9.5 at the start of the week, all the way down to 7.5 before now we've gotten some buyback on the Chiefs and we're back to 8.5 here. Very curious where you land on this one, because we know that the Chiefs have had trouble winning by large margins this season. And we also know, for the most part, that the Patriots have been a dumpster fire this year. But what do you make of what we saw last week?
I am not going to get too into what the Patriots did last week, because I think there are reasons to look at that game in terms of where the Pittsburgh Steelers are right now and say that they caught them at just the right time for the Patriots to have the kind of performance they did and ultimately just barely hang on to win in the end. But we got to talk more about the Chiefs and what's going on right now. I'm not ready to sell the Chiefs, to be clear, but I am ready to have a frank discussion about where they are right now and what we need to do with them in terms of evaluating them. So in the second half of the season, such as it is, week 8 to week 14, as we come into these games, EPA per play on offense is 11th. I don't think that will really surprise anyone, because we've seen the struggles they have to generate explosive plays. What concerns me in this matchup, and the reason that I don't think that the Kansas City teaser leg is a slam dunk. I'm not saying don't play it. I'm just saying think long and hard before you do. The reason I don't think it's a slam dunk is they are 32nd in EPA per play against the run in the second half of this season. And it is not by a small margin. They are as far from Seattle. They are 32nd. Seattle is 31st. They are as far from Seattle as Seattle is from the Chargers, who are in 26th. So you're looking at a team that is giving up, in terms of rush EPA, by far the most in the league. And to me, against the New England team, where we feel like maybe that's the one thing they still can do, is run the football. I would like to go after this one on Zeke Elliott props. I feel like I feel more comfortable. Right now, DraftKings is sitting 60.5, which, again, would normally look like a pretty inflated number in 2023. However, their number one back isn't there. This is the Zeke show, and it was the Zeke show last week, and it's going to be the Zeke show again this week. Bill Belichick is smart enough to look at this Kansas City defense and know where it's weak, and to know that he's not going to expose Bailey Zappi to having to beat the Kansas City Chiefs with all of the blitzes that Steve Spagnuolo is going to throw out there from the Kansas City side. So I would be looking at Zeke yardage overs. I think even more importantly, I would be looking at Zeke carries overs when they post to know what I really want. But I think there's enough question for me about, can the New England Patriots muddy things up enough on the defensive side of the ball for Patrick Mahomes that I definitely don't want to get involved in the spread. I would be a little bit scared of the teaser. If you need that leg because it's a week for teasers, yes, that makes sense. It's a bad week for teasers. Then you absolutely could still throw Kansas City in there, and I think that would be fine. But it would not be my first choice to put on the card.
The Ezekiel Elliott angle is very interesting to me, because few, if any, running backs are playing more than 90% of snaps for their team at this point. And that's what Ezekiel Elliott did last week against Pittsburgh. Played 52 of 57 snaps in that game. 22 carries for 68 yards, and added 7 receptions on 8 targets for 72 yards and a touchdown. That is extreme volume. Props are out for him, Adam. We're at 60.5 on the rushing yards, 18.5 on the rushing attempts, which is quite a bit lower than 22 from last week, right? And longest rush, 13. I don't know if I want anything like long or explosive with Ezekiel Elliott, but pure volume, right?
Yeah, I think, you know, where I would actually look now that, and I was, thank you for finding that using, I'm sure, the props tool at thelines.com. I I'm now looking at combined rush and receiving total, and I'm wondering if maybe that is the way to go in case they decide that it's the short screen game that makes more sense to try to negate the pass rush of Kansas City, right? Because that would make a lot of sense if they wanted to use some of those screens to try to slow down the blitz. 83.5 is the combined yardage total for rush and receive. I think that's where I would land on this game is if you think he's going to get anything like that target volume again this week, then you combine rush and receive. You figure he touches the ball 23, 24 times in this game, then I'm only asking him to get 3.5 yards every time to be able to get to that number.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for me. And for those that are also curious in the receiving yards, only 18.5. That's the number right now. That's the prop. 18.5 for receiving yards on Zeke after he went for 72 last week and 40 the week before against the Chargers. So I'll add a little bit more here on the teaser angle. I did bet New England plus 10 at the very start of the week. That number's long gone. That's not going to help anybody now. That key number's not coming back, I don't think. But at least with the teaser leg, I agree that it kind of makes me queasy. Like, listen, I have been right there at the front of the line getting punished with teasing down road favorites this year. They have not been all that successful for the most part this season. But I will at least say that the Patriots defense, for all of their advanced metrics, there's at least a case to be made that they are exactly what we thought they were last year, where they're feasting on bad quarterbacks and piling up numbers against putrid offenses, because this season they've given up 25 to the Eagles, 24 and 31 to the Dolphins, 38 to the Cowboys, and 25 to the Bills. They haven't been anywhere near as dominant when they've actually played a functioning NFL offense this year. And I'm certainly not about to buy high on Bailey Zappi basically on one half of football. So I think I certainly like it more than, say Miami as a teaser leg this week, Adam.
Yeah, and I would just add one caveat to that on the Eagles. 7 of those were on a Mac Jones pick six as well. So, they have had some moments where Mac Jones has put them in very, very bad situations, whether it's actual pick sixes, which have happened, I believe, 4 times this year. I think Mac Jones had 4 pick sixes while he was the starting quarterback. So Bailey Zappi, you would hope, isn't going to do that, although he also has a pick six on his ledger this year. But if you believe anything of what you saw last week, and you believe anything of how weak the Kansas City rush defense has been, I think there is a game script here that gets me to being comfortable with, again, I talked about it from the Ezekiel Elliott angle here, but with a low total like this, with all the points involved, we've seen this year overall that I think you feel more comfortable, at least, if you're getting points than laying points in a game like this.
Chiefs are less than a field goal against the Ravens, Dolphins, and Jaguars in the playoffs. You run into the window to back Mahomes at that low point.
Name those teams again.
The other 3 top teams in the AFC: the Ravens, the Dolphins, and the Jaguars.
I am not betting them. Well, I am betting them against the Jaguars for sure. I don't think that's there's not a lot of question involved in that one for me. The Jaguars are way too volatile. We have no idea how healthy Trevor Lawrence is or will be. The Ravens, probably not. That rushing offense for Baltimore can probably dismantle what Kansas City has right now. So I'm probably taking the points with the Ravens in that one. And Miami's tough. I don't know what to do with Miami, because when we saw the two teams, right? And when we saw them play earlier this year, it's the Germany game. So how much credence do I put in a 21-14 final from what we saw there? Like you mentioned, we don't know how healthy Tyreek Hill is at this point. So yeah, I think I'm probably 1-1-1 on the things you mentioned there.
Yeah, but it's at least interesting that it isn't a slam dunk that it's the Chiefs against all 3 of them, which we probably would have said at this time last year.
No, and the other, you also have to remember that at least one of those games is probably going to be on the road.
Yep. Yeah, 1 seed, definitely not looking good for Kansas City at this point.